What if the most profound tools for a fearless life and a conscious death weren't complex secrets, but simple daily rituals so powerful, some systems would rather you didn't know them? This isn't just talk. We're diving into the living practices of the so-called Forbidden Death Book and uncovering why their impact is something they might prefer you overlook. Ever feel a pull towards a deeper understanding of life's biggest questions? A sense that true empowerment is just within reach? We all search for meaning in our lives, don't we? There's a universal human quest to understand our place, to find a sense of purpose, especially when faced with life's great unknown, death. Many feel adrift in this uncertainty, looking for an anchor. The idea of a forbidden book of death isn't necessarily about a single physical volume locked away in a vault. Rather, it represents a vast body of ancient wisdom, teachings passed down through ages, all centered on the nature of consciousness, the truth of the soul, and how we navigate the profound transition we call death. At its core, this wisdom fosters spiritual sovereignty, that deep, unshakable sense of inner self-governance. So, why would such empowering knowledge be considered forbidden or be systematically veiled? Throughout history, structures of power, whether they be dogmatic institutions or purely materialist worldviews, have often marginalized or even suppressed teachings that lead to radical self-knowledge. Think about it. An individual who is truly conscious, at peace with their own mortality, and connected to their inner authority, is less susceptible to external narratives built on fear or on promises of salvation that can only be granted by an outside source. Imagine this ancient wisdom not as a dusty, locked tome, but more like an open-source code for human liberation. And like any powerful code, certain firewalls, cultural biases, societal norms, even our own internal resistance, have often tried to block its full implementation. The real forbidden aspect, you see, often lies in our collective hesitation to fully run this program of inner awakening. This journey we're embarking on today isn't about delving into overly complex esoteric theories. Instead, we will focus on the living, breathing practices, accessible daily rituals, that allow us to embody this ancient wisdom. The aim is to cultivate a life lived without the shadow of fear and to prepare for a conscious, peaceful transition, fostering genuine spiritual growth along the way. In an age of information overload, why do the deepest truths about our existence often feel like the best-kept secrets? What if the key to unlocking them has always been an inside job, waiting for us to turn our attention inward? We begin with a fundamental human experience, the way we identify so strongly with our daytime armor. These are the roles we play, the careers we pursue, our carefully crafted social personas, even the digital versions of ourselves we present to the world. This deep entanglement with what is, by its very nature, temporary, forms a significant root of our fear of dissolution, our fear of what happens when these identities are stripped away by death. The ancient practice, often whispered about as dying before you die, starts with a conscious daily act of shedding this armor. This isn't about denying the value or function of these roles in our lives. It's about a profound recognition that they are not the sum total of our being. It's about practicing mindful disidentification. So, what does this look like as a practical daily ritual? Each night, before you drift into sleep, take a few quiet moments. Internally, or even in a soft whisper, affirm, "This professional persona I wore today, the one that strived and achieved, I now release it with gratitude. The expectations I carried, the social masks I presented, I gently set them aside. The me that navigated the challenges and joys of this day is a part of, but not the entirety of, my true self." Allow these layers, this armor, to simply loosen their hold, to fall away for these sacred moments. Think of it like stepping out of a high-performance vehicle after a long and demanding race. You appreciate the vehicle, its power, its function on the track of life. But you, the conscious awareness, you are the driver, not the car. This nightly ritual is your moment of stepping out, of breathing the fresh air, of remembering who you are beyond the intense focus of the race. This practice finds echoes in modern psychological approaches like acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which emphasizes disidentifying from our thoughts and roles to gain greater psychological flexibility. It also resonates deeply with the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy, which constantly reminds us to distinguish between what is essential to our inner being and what is merely external and transient. Consider for a moment the sheer lightness, the profound relief of not having to be someone, to perform some role, even for these few sacred minutes each day. If you were to consciously hang up all your daytime armor tonight, who or what would you discover in that quiet, unburdened space? This, you see, is one of the first keys offered by the so-called Forbidden Book. Which piece of your daytime armor feels the heaviest to set aside, even temporarily? What does that tell you about your core attachments, and perhaps your deepest, unspoken fears? After the conscious act of releasing our daytime identities, what emerges in that quiet space? It's not an empty void of nothingness, as some might fear. Instead, it's an invitation to rest in what mystics and contemplatives across traditions describe as pure consciousness or open awareness. This is the foundational field of our being, a serene expanse of potentiality from which all experiences arise. The second part of this daily letting go ritual, then, is to simply rest in this observing awareness. It's about learning to be present with whatever thoughts, feelings, or sensations arise, without being swept away by them, without clinging to them or pushing them away. How can we access this? After you've mentally set aside your roles and identities, gently bring your attention to your breath. Let it be a soft, natural anchor in the present moment. As thoughts or feelings emerge, as they inevitably will, simply notice them. Observe them as you might observe leaves floating down a calm, clear stream. You don't need to stop the stream, nor do you need to jump in and be carried away by every leaf. You are the calm, witnessing presence on the bank. This is a direct pathway to inner peace. Imagine your mind is like Grand Central Station during the busiest rush hour, a constant stream of thoughts, emotions, plans, memories, all rushing by. This practice of resting in open awareness isn't about trying to stop all the trains. That would be an impossible and frustrating task. Instead, it's about discovering that quiet, elevated observation deck that exists within you, a place from which you can watch the bustle, the coming and going, without being swept into the chaos. You begin to realize that you are the spacious station itself, not merely the individual trains that pass through. Modern neuroscience, particularly research into practices like open monitoring meditation, is beginning to map the changes in brain activity associated with this state, changes that correlate with increased well-being, emotional regulation, and a quieting of the brain's default mode network, often responsible for that incessant mental chatter. This is, in many ways, modern science catching up with the profound insights of ancient wisdom regarding the taming of the monkey mind. This space of calm, open awareness is remarkably similar to what many ancient texts describe as the soul's natural, luminous state, a state often clouded by the demands and distractions of daily life. How familiar are you becoming with your own inner sky, your own quiet station within? We all have parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden, even from ourselves. These are our shadows, our unacknowledged fears, our unprocessed griefs, our judgments, our insecurities. The underlying wisdom found in these forbidden book traditions doesn't shy away from this. It cautions that these shadow aspects don't simply vanish when we die. Instead, they become the very landscape of our subsequent experience. They are reflected back to us in what can be called the mirror of the soul. The practice of shadow alchemy, then, isn't about trying to eradicate these parts of ourselves. That would be like trying to make a shadow disappear by fighting it. Instead, It's about the courageous act of bringing these hidden aspects into the light of our conscious awareness, not with judgment, but with curiosity and profound compassion. It's about understanding their origins, their messages, and ultimately, transforming their dense, heavy lead into the gold of self-understanding and wholeness. So how can we engage in this alchemical process? One powerful ritual is through what we might call the Soul Detective's Journal. On a regular basis, perhaps weekly or whenever you feel a particular inner turbulence, set aside some quiet time. With a spirit of gentle, non-judgmental investigation, ask yourself, what challenging emotion am I subtly trying to avoid or numb today? Or, what reactive pattern surfaced in me recently? And what underlying unmet need might it be signaling? And perhaps, if this shadow, this fear, this anger, this sadness were a messenger, what urgent news is it trying to deliver to me? Then, write freely. Let the words flow without censorship, as if you are a detective carefully gathering clues, not a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. Think of your shadow aspects not as villains in the story of your life, but perhaps as neglected characters or misunderstood plot twists that hold crucial information for your soul's development. This journaling practice is like sitting down with these characters, script in hand, and compassionately asking, okay, what's your real motivation here? What part of the bigger unfolding story of my life are you trying to reveal to me? This approach resonates deeply with the work of modern pioneers in depth psychology. Carl Jung spoke extensively about the shadow and the vital importance of its integration for achieving psychological wholeness, or individuation. More recently, writers like Debbie Ford, in books such as The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, have brought this concept to a wider audience, emphasizing that our greatest strengths are often hidden within these disowned parts. And if we look to ancient traditions, many shamanic practices involve sacred journeys to retrieve or heal these lost or wounded parts of the soul. If your inner world, your entire psyche, were to be fully illuminated and reflected back to you in the afterlife, as these ancient texts suggest, which unexamined corners, which hidden aspects of yourself would you perhaps be most hesitant or even afraid to encounter? And what if exploring them now, with courage and self-compassion, was the very key to unlocking true inner freedom and peace, both in this life and beyond? In our fast-paced modern culture, one that often prioritizes relentless progress and accumulation, it's easy to forget a fundamental truth of existence. Everything is impermanent. We live in a society that frequently denies or sanitizes the reality of death. And this collective amnesia about life's inherent transitoriness can make our encounters with loss, change, and our own finitude all the more shocking and difficult to navigate. Creating a personal transition altar is not an act of morbidity, nor is it about dwelling on death. Rather, it's about establishing what we might call an impermanence anchor in our daily lives, a gentle, sacred, and visual reminder of the constant, natural flow of arising and passing away. This conscious acknowledgement of impermanence doesn't lead to despair. Paradoxically, it can inspire us to live more fully, more presently, and with a healthier sense of detachment from that which will inevitably change. How can you create such a space? It can be incredibly simple. Find a small, quiet corner, perhaps on a bookshelf or a windowsill. Consider including elements like these. A single candle. This represents the light of consciousness, the flame of life itself, beautiful, vibrant, and yet, by its very nature, temporary. Something from the natural world that visibly changes. A fresh flower that will gradually wilt, a leaf that slowly dries and curls, or even a small clear bowl of water that you observe evaporating over days. These are direct reflections of life's cycles. Perhaps a photograph of a loved one who has passed on, if that brings you comfort and a sense of continued connection, rather than sorrow. It honors their memory and acknowledges the transition they have made. You might also include a small symbolic object that represents a particular attachment you are consciously working on releasing, perhaps an old habit, a lingering fear, or a past regret. The ritual itself is simple. Spend just a few moments each day, or even a few times a week, quietly contemplating this space. Breathe deeply and allow the reality of change, of impermanence, to settle into your awareness. Consider this altar your personal North Star for navigating the ever-shifting currents of impermanence. In the sometimes turbulent waters of daily life, it serves as a fixed point of reference, gently reminding you, this too shall pass. Therefore, live this present moment fully. Appreciate what is here now. It's less an altar to death, and more an altar for mindful, appreciative living, deeply inspired by the precious, finite nature of this human experience. This practice finds resonance in various wisdom traditions. Think of the Japanese concept of mono no aware, that gentle, poignant awareness of the transience of all things, which evokes a deep appreciation for their beauty. Or consider the reflections of the ancient Stoic philosophers, who consistently contemplated impermanence not to become despondent, but as a powerful catalyst for living a life of virtue, presence, and gratitude. If you had a daily, tangible reminder that everything in your life, including your own physical form, is in a constant state of flux, how might that shift your daily worries, your priorities, and focus your appreciation for what truly, deeply matters to you today? Our minds are often like bustling marketplaces, filled with the constant noise of internal chatter and external stimuli. There's the voice of the inner critic, the endless loop of worries and anxieties, the cacophony of media and daily demands. This relentless noise can easily drown out the subtler whispers of our intuition, that quiet, guiding voice of our deeper self, our soul, our connection to what some call Source, God, or the universe. The ancient wisdom encapsulated in the Forbidden Book traditions suggests that specific words, sounds, and phrases, when uttered with focused intention, what we know as mantras and affirmations, can act like vibrational tuning forks. They have the power to recalibrate our consciousness, to help us shift from the static and dissonance of our everyday mind to the clear, resonant frequency of our soul's essential nature. This is about intentionally changing our inner mindset. How can we engage this practice? It begins with simplicity and heartfelt intention. Consider mantras like Aham Prema, a Sanskrit phrase meaning, I am divine love. This isn't just a statement, it's an invocation, an alignment with a fundamental quality of being. Or the well-known Soham, which translates to I am that, a profound recognition of our connection to the universal consciousness, often synchronized with the breath. So, on the inhale, ham, on the exhale. Beyond traditional mantras, you can craft personal affirmations, short, powerful statements spoken in the present tense that reinforce your deepest truths and aspirations. For example, I am a conduit for peace and wisdom, or my true essence is boundless, and I am intrinsically connected to the loving intelligence of the universe. Or even, today, I choose to meet life with courage and an open heart. The key is to repeat them not mechanically but with feeling, with a sense of embodying their truth. Imagine your inner state as a complex and sensitive soundboard with many sliders and dials. The stresses of daily life, negative self-talk, and absorbed anxieties can inadvertently push these sliders into levels that create dissonance, unease, and a feeling of being out of tune. Mantras and affirmations are like consciously, lovingly, and precisely adjusting those sliders back to a harmonious, resonant chord, the natural, inherent frequency of your soul. The use of sacred sound, chant, and potent words is a near-universal practice across spiritual traditions, from the Gregorian chants of Christian mystics, to the sacred songs of indigenous peoples, to the curtain call and response of the Bhakti Yoga tradition. While we won't delve deeply into scientific studies here, It's worth noting that research into psychoacoustics and the effects of specific sound patterns and music on the brain does suggest the profound power of sound to influence our mood, our physiological state, and even our brainwave activity. If your soul, your deepest essence, had a core resonant frequency, a home note that signifies its purest expression, what would that feel like to you? And what simple sound, word, or phrase could you begin to use, perhaps even whisper to yourself throughout the day, to help you gently tune back into that essential, peaceful, and powerful vibration? We've explored these powerful daily rituals together. The conscious letting go of our daytime armor, the alchemical work with our shadows, the grounding practice of the impermanence anchor, and the soul-attuning power of mantras and affirmations. These are not just isolated techniques or quaint spiritual exercises. They are, in fact, golden threads that weave together to reveal a much larger, more profound tapestry, the central liberating truth taught by the so-called Forbidden Book. And what is this great revelation, this secret so potent that some systems of thought or control might prefer you didn't fully grasp it? It isn't some exotic hidden detail about the afterlife, or a complex map of celestial realms. It is something far more immediate, far more empowering, and far more dangerous to any structure that thrives on fear or ignorance. It is this: through the consistent, heartfelt practice of these inner rituals, you have the innate capacity to dissolve your fear of death, not in some distant future, but here and now, in this very life. Consider the implications. A person who has made peace with their own mortality, who has looked deeply into the nature of their own consciousness, is a person who lives with a profound sense of inner freedom. They are less easily manipulated, less swayed by fear-based narratives, more authentic in their expressions, and more deeply connected to their intrinsic sense of purpose. This, you see, is true spiritual sovereignty, and that, to any system that relies on conformity or external authority, is genuinely subversive. This is the turning point that these ancient teachings offer us. The preparation for death, often viewed as a grim or morbid preoccupation, is in reality the ultimate life enhancement strategy. It is the most radical, transformative practice for living fully. By consciously dying to your limiting beliefs, your conditioned fears, and your false identifications each and every day, you are, in essence, reborn to your truer, more expansive, and more courageous self now. The forbidden aspect of this knowledge isn't the information itself, which has always been available to those who seek it. It's the radical reclaiming of your own innate power, your own inner authority that these practices ignite. This profound wisdom, this path to fearless living, does not belong to a select few, to ancient mystics or secret societies. It is your spiritual birthright. To claim these practices, to engage with them sincerely, is to claim the fullness of your life, to step into your true purpose. The only danger these rituals pose is to the limitations you've unknowingly accepted, and to the external voices that would prefer you remain small, fearful, and dependent. They offer instead a path to becoming limitlessly, authentically, and courageously you. Now, with this understanding, this revelation of your innate capacity for fearless living, the journey truly begins. And it begins not with a giant leap into the unknown, but with a single gentle step. Rather than feeling overwhelmed by the depth and breadth of these practices, the invitation now is to choose perhaps just one small flame of awareness, one simple ritual, that you can begin to tend in your life today. Let's explore a beautifully simple, yet profoundly effective ritual that combines the essence of several teachings we've touched upon. We'll call it the Heart Light Ritual, for it centers on the illuminating and healing power of your own heart's wisdom. The Forbidden Book, in its many forms, ultimately guides us in navigating our consciousness through the unwavering light of an awakened, compassionate heart. So, how do we practice this Heart Light Ritual? Find a moment of quiet, perhaps sitting comfortably, and gently place your hands over the center of your chest, over your heart space. Close your eyes if that feels right for you, and take a few slow, deep breaths, allowing your body and mind to settle. First, we invoke the light of forgiveness. Bring to your awareness, without judgment, a small resentment you might be holding on to, a past hurt, or perhaps a self-criticism that frequently visits you. Now visualize a warm, soft, unconditionally loving light emanating directly from your heart center. See this gentle light tenderly enveloping that feeling, that memory, that judgment. And as you exhale, feel that light, along with the heavy emotion, dissolving, releasing its grip. You might silently affirm, "I choose the lightness of being. I release this burden. I offer forgiveness to myself and to others." This echoes the ancient Egyptian ideal of a heart lighter than a feather, unburdened by the weight of unresolved negativity. Next, we connect with the light of conscious transition, a gentle form of visualization. Still with your hands on your heart, imagine your core consciousness, your very essence, as a serene, unwavering light. If you were preparing for a significant journey, the ultimate transition, what unnecessary baggage, what fears, what attachments, what old stories, would you lovingly choose to leave behind so that you could travel light, unencumbered? Allow the clear light of your heart to illuminate these items. Acknowledge them, perhaps even thank them for any lessons they may have taught you. And then, with a sense of gentle release, let them go. You are practicing the art of conscious, loving detachment. This isn't about achieving some grand, dramatic gesture of enlightenment in a single sitting. It's about the consistent, sincere practice of these small acts of inner alignment, these moments of intentional, heart-centered awareness. Even just 5 minutes dedicated to this heart-light ritual each day can begin to subtly, yet profoundly, shift your energy, your mindset, and your experience of life, bringing a greater sense of inner peace, clarity, and an unshakable connection to your resilient, loving core. We've journeyed together through these potent, once-veiled rituals, practices that have the power to reframe our entire relationship with mortality. We've seen how they can transform fear not into its absence, but into a profound invitation for deep spiritual growth, for courageous and for truly fearless living. Perhaps it's fitting to remember the words of the teacher Jack Kornfield, who wisely noted, "The trouble is, you think you have time." This isn't meant to induce anxiety, but to awaken us to the preciousness of this present moment. Indeed, a simpler yet equally powerful truth holds: to live fully is the best preparation for death. And so, the journey of the Forbidden Book culminates not in an ending, but in a beginning. Knowing that your essence, your true self, is far greater and more enduring than this single chapter of physical existence. How will you choose to write today's page of your soul's magnificent unfolding story? Which of these forbidden, yet ultimately liberating rituals resonated most deeply with you today? And what's one small, manageable way you might begin to weave its wisdom, its practice, into the fabric of your life this coming week? Please share your insights and intentions in the comments below. Your journey, your reflections, can serve as a beacon, an inspiration for others who are also walking this path of discovery. If this exploration of ancient wisdom, tailored for modern living, has sparked something within you, a recognition, a sense of coming home, please honor that inner resonance. You can do so by liking this video, by subscribing to Mystic Sages for more deep dives into the transformative power of perennial truths, and by sharing this message with anyone you feel could benefit from this empowering, life-affirming perspective. Remember, the Forbidden Book isn't a destination to be reached, nor a secret to be hoarded. It is a way of walking, a way of being, a way of engaging with life from a place of profound inner freedom. The tools, the keys are now yours. Live with courage, love without reservation, and navigate your unique path with the ever-present consciousness of your eternal, luminous nature.